All right. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. I'm joined by Jason Vivang for episode 286. And Jason, I'm going to start from the jump right there and just say, I realize I say your last name differently, like every other episode. I mean, where's the emphasis? Is it Vivang or is it Vivang?
Yeah.
Where's the emphasis?
It's Vivang.
Vivang. Okay, well, there we go. See, I'm starting
It's
off.
funny we've been doing this for 4 years.
It's not like I look at your last name and
I feel like you
I've
say it
always
right most of the time. I don't really notice.
sometimes when I'm speaking quickly, I think I just, zip right past it, but whatever,
A lot of people say it different ways. I've just gotten too used to it. Just say it however you want, honestly.
It's not that complicated of a last name. It's really not. It's just I just heard myself say it and whatever. It's fine. As Major League Soccer is rolling past, I guess, match day 3, which technically I was thinking about it. Both of our arguments were correct last week. Last week was match day 2, but it was week 1, all in the same week.
Yeah.
We want to get technical about it, but we did have week 2, match day 3, whatever we want to call it. Another exciting.
We can't keep having that conversation. It's gonna be week 7, match day 8.
I'm not going to be doing that all season long. I just had to make sure that we both knew our arguments were correct.
We both knew that we were both technically correct.
And I think one thing that, I don't know if we're going to agree upon to start off the episode, but I did toss it to you about 30 seconds before we recorded. The apparent reports that were coming out from The Athletic that Major League Soccer asked their, MLS announcers on Apple TV and stuff like that to, for lack of better words, go easy on the temporary refs that we have.
Just don't bring up
just don't bring up the awful calls as much. Don't highlight it as much, whatever you want to say. I'm trying to decide where to go with it wording wise. It's not like a major thing to talk about, but I think it's major enough to at least mention what your opinion is of those apparent reports.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't feel that strongly against it, I guess. You can kind of pick up on it, obviously, in watching the games. I think week 1, I forget, I think it was 12-man or something. Somebody was announcing. And I just kind of had a feeling like they weren't going to bring it up. To me, it makes sense that MLS would ask. If you're MLS, you're not going to want the people announcing the games to be hammering home that these are replacement referees, right? To the average fan, they probably don't even know, right? So if you start being oh, bad call, oh, what is this? Pay the, then it's these people are also somewhat employees of MLS, right? So they're essentially taking a side in something. It's almost like a legal thing, probably. If I'm an announcer for an MLS game, I can't be oh, these refs are horrible. Go pay the other ones, the real ones. Then it's I'm siding, as an employee, siding with. You know what I mean? I feel like that's I don't know law, but I feel like that's something there.
No, it's not even probably law. It's probably more just job security.
I don't know.
I completely not respect it. I completely understand why an employees of a company would want to not do this to have a job, money, bills, life, because that's real shit, right? So I thought we were gonna disagree on this topic the way you were wording it initially, but I agree with you in that sense that it makes sense that these MLS, these Apple TV announcers, whatever, are following the directions of what their bosses at the league are telling them. I just personally think it's nice to have outside reporting not coming from Major League Soccer, like The Athletic that does a great job, Tom Boger, Paul Tenorio, all the guys over there that is just bringing this to light a little bit, because it does, I think, just like we talk about how Apple TV and MLS Season Pass legitimizes the league a little bit more in a professional global sense. I think reporting like this does even if it's for negative reasons, does continue to legitimize the league, that there's larger outlets covering this and talking about the things that are going right just as much as the things that are going wrong with the league. So yes, the replacement refs have been making awful calls, as we saw in the Philadelphia Union Sporting Kansas City game with the late the late game tying goal and all of that. But it's nice that I think someone's reporting on it, in the sense of, right, like, it's not just being overlooked. MLS is just shooing it away, right? People are talking about it just as much as I think it's important for us to talk about it, because these replacement refs do kind of blow. So that is just my personal opinion on the replacement refs.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think I'm kind of agreeing. Like, I'm not hard on like the they need to talk about them, because like,
Yes.
again, it is like a live MLS broadcast, so it's
Yes.
kind of awkward in that sense. But I totally agree. Like, when you have other news sources highlighting this, it's like, it is an issue. It's one of the plus, like, the subscriber numbers are up. The league is getting more eyes. Like, I think I saw a tweet today that was like, the interactions on Twitter are up like over 50% from last year. Like, all of that is super massive and important, and that's bringing in a lot of money. So like, I don't know where they are with the negotiations, but like, the league is growing so much. It kind of makes sense, if you're a professional ref, to ask for more, like, especially with that, it's not the easiest job. But yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, because like, the replacement refs haven't been amazing. I think they've had some moments where like, there's been games that I haven't noticed them as much, but yeah, there's been some really bad ones. And it's like, I don't like just throwing them under the bus, because like, those guys come in and like, they're not pros.
Look, it's I don't want to be too hard on them. There is some obviously blatant calls. Like I said, that SKC Philly match is probably the clearest example from this past weekend. And then we also had that one pro ref got removed from the Inter Miami game just like a few hours before, because he was seen with the photo of him with the Miami jersey on from like a few days prior in like on his social media or whatever. So, right, like, there's issues coming up. And I think at the end of the day, if you leave a game talking about the referee, it's a little like, you don't want to be mentioning the referee. You don't want to be mentioning a call or a missed call or whatever that decided a game, right? I think there's other things that you should be focusing
To be fair,
on.
like, even pro refs do shit like that all the
Yes,
time.
of course. And it's not to say that calls aren't going to go wrong or anything like that. I just think that, whatever, I don't know the full extent to it. Maybe I should. Sorry, whatever. But I do think that there was a negotiation between the the refs organization, and I thought it was agreed upon heading into the season. But maybe the refs weren't happy, or the union wasn't happy with what was decided. It's a very strange situation. It's not a normal situation from my understanding of it. I think, just like you said, viewers are up, money's up, interactions up. So the refs are probably seeing a little bit of that and being like, we want
Where's our cut or whatever.
our fair share of it too, which is understandable, right? Everyone, I think, in what MLS is growing to in U.S. soccer, is going to be, growing with it as well, is going to want a piece of that. So it makes sense. Hopefully, things can get decided a little bit sooner rather than later, so we have less of this ref conversation and more of soccer conversation around Major League Soccer. And then I guess the other thing to go along with maybe some bad news around MLS is the U.S.
Great
Open.
start to the podcast.
It's always a great start when we talk less game and we talk more.
What, week 3, I guess, And
yeah,
we're just
right?
like, this
here.
is what's wrong. This is what sucks.
Yeah. Well, so the U.S. Open Cup, the 2024 U.S. Open Cup, back when the initial drama around the whole kind of competition and Major League Soccer's involvement in it for this year dropped in the offseason, we talked about it heavily, talking about how MLS was initially backing out at the first division level, and their MLS Next Pro sides were going to represent them in the competition. Social media went nuts. There was apparently some behind the scenes conversations between the USSF and Major League Soccer, and They have finally come to the decision of what the result's going to be for Major League Soccer clubs within the 2024 version of the competition. 8 MLS clubs will play in the 2024 U.S. Open Cup. Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, the reigning champs, Sporting Kansas City, LAFC, RSL, San Jose, and Seattle. 11 MLS Next Pro clubs will be playing in the competition 11 of them will be playing in the competition. 2 are independents. That's Carolina Core FC and Chattanooga FC. Don't really need to worry about them. They're independent clubs. That makes sense. The other 9 are going to be MLS Next Pro clubs that are representing their MLS Division 1 side in the competition. So that's going to be Austin, Chicago, Colorado, Crown Legacy, the Galaxy, Minnesota, NYCFC, Red Bulls, and Portland. The clubs that are not going to be playing in the competition are Columbus, Cincinnati, DC, Miami, Nashville, New England, Orlando, Philadelphia, and St. Louis. Most of those clubs are not going to be playing in the competition because they are playing in CONCACAF Champions Cup. The only club in Major League Soccer who is not playing in CONCACAF Champions Cup, not being represented in U.S. Open Cup by their first division side or by their MLS Next Pro side is DC United, who does not have an MLS Next Pro side to represent them. So just tossing it out there for the DC folks. I put an article up on MLSAces.com kind of giving my thoughts a little bit about this. So I want to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, I mean, it's very disappointing for me personally. I think, like, especially DC, even Chicago, are 2 clubs that have taken the U.S. Open Cup pretty seriously over the last couple decades or whatever plus. So it's weird to not see them in there, like the main capacity. Obviously, Chicago's the next pro. I think, like, if you're gonna say something that is nice, it's like the 8 MLS teams in it are like the next best 8 that aren't in CONCACAF Champions Cup. So it's like at least they took the next best 8, but it's still just so disappointing. Like, I think that's just a big word. I'm just disappointed. Like, it didn't have to be this bad. If they wanted to just play their next pro sides anyways, I would have been like fine with that if that's what they were doing. But
what's the difference if you do short-term loans from your MLS Next Pro side to your first team and
you just figure that out? Like, the way it went down is shitty. Like, this is their compromise. Was MLS was like, okay, those teams will play. You know, you can't get these ones, and you know the other one. I don't like what the Fire. Like, because I'm a fan of the Fire. What do they have to lose by playing in this competition? Literally nothing. It's so stupid that we're not in that competition to just name one team. Like, I just don't get it. That they take it seriously. Or have taken it seriously. It's really disappointing, and I don't know how they determined teams. I guess it's probably they were like the next 8 best.
It was probably the next 8, and then the rest are just MLS Next Pro
teams. And so, like, I don't know what teams maybe wanted to be in that didn't have a chance. Like, did DC actually want to be in? And then because of this system, like, I did hear a rumor that like Joe Mansueto, who owns the Fire, like actually wanted to be in the competition, but I can't, guarantee that. That's a rumor.
Yeah.
But my point is, like, what teams of those did want to be in that couldn't because they weren't even in like eligible, I guess. But I don't know. I think the whole thing is messed up. I'm glad I picked Louisville, man. I'm going to root for them because I'm just rooting for smaller teams now. Like, screw MLS for doing this shit to the tournament because it's like one of the most fun things that we have.
You know what? It's like I have a lot of thoughts about it. So if I ramble, interrupt me.
It's okay. I feel like I wasn't very cohesive there. I was just rambling on about how it's not fun, but it's just not fun, man.
It makes okay. There's a lot of thoughts here that just kind of they contradict each other a little bit. It makes sense that if the plan was, okay, no CONCACAF Champions Club teams except for Houston, the reigning champs, throw them in, right? Then the next 8, in the standings or whatever, has the next best 8. Like, this is your secondary competition or whatever. And then if you didn't make that, then
it's
the rest
saying, like, this is the Europa League or something. You know how they have that?
Yeah, but it's not
the Champions League. It's not. But it's sort of what they're.
So I think I think when, UEFA was trying to drop the Super League and stuff like that, people hated it for a multitude of reasons. I think one thing that people just don't like, including myself, is change and change from the traditional. And the traditional is most countries that have a first division soccer league also has a cup competition that includes lower divisions. And it's fun. It helps grow the sport in the country. It helps grow everything, right? And I think that's the one thing that I'm having a hard time with. And I know plenty of fans are as well, that it's just like, this is tradition. This is one of the oldest soccer competitions. This is literally the only club soccer competition that the USSF has to worry about. And, they've had their own issues with it, and they haven't marketed it. They haven't pushed for leagues to market it. And I mean, look, the winning team, I think I wrote it here. The winning team, all they got last year, all Houston got was a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot and about $300,000. I understand why MLS clubs don't prioritize the competition. The League's Cup winner last year, Inter Miami, got a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot and about $1 million in total money. USSF is also failing the US Open Cup the same way that Major League Soccer is, by not prioritizing it and not pushing it into the limelight and ignoring the competition, if we want to be real about it. So though I don't agree with Major League Soccer pretty much backing out of the competition, and might most likely will kill the competition if this continues to be the trend, I also don't agree with USSF as they're blameless in this, and like they haven't done their part in strangleholding the competition. You know what I'm saying? So I think both parties are at fault. The fact that there's no TV deal for this competition is a travesty. The fact that there should be more soccer eyes on this, and there's not. It's multiple people's faults. I feel bad for USL competition because they put 100% into this and they do what they can, and they're clearly annoyed about Major League Soccer and what they've done with this, and I don't blame them. And it's just sad
They've
because
got their own plans at this point.
100%.
I think USL is going to take because you're right. Like the points you're making are very correct or whatever. Like the fact that the USSF also has kind of like made this competition like a secondary thing. No TV deal. Like, of course, teams aren't going to be jumping at another game where they're barely making money. The ticket sales are usually lower, so that there's obviously a lot of fans who are outraged. But like, how many of those fans actually went to those games?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. And some of the games obviously are not easy to do, like midweek, whatever.
That's
But
also
still,
another issue with it, that maybe they should be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday games, but whatever.
but then you're conflicting even more. But I don't know. I think it's a bummer because of the history of the competition. And it's just like MLS clearly is prioritizing like the Leagues Cup, like you said. Like they didn't have to make that, We
No, they didn't have
like that's
to.
another competition that then is like phasing out US Open Cup. That's what they're doing. They're just making different competitions where they can sort of control it, put more money into it, and have that be like the big thing.
100%.
There's no way if they don't make the Leagues Cup that Apple TV couldn't all strike a deal in some way for Apple TV to also have the US Open Cup.
100%. I mean, like, how many times on this podcast, since you and I have been doing this together, we talk about how the Open Cup's on Bleacher Report, on YouTube only, on like the fact that this competition
Half
is
the
not
time
even,
it's impossible to know where the game is.
exactly, literally,
Googling,
like,
how do I watch the game tonight? Like
the thing that, and again, we'll always say it, the thing that makes the FA Cup special is the lower division teams hosting and really being able to build up smaller soccer communities and growing it that way, right? And that's something that has always been missing from the US Open Cup. And I understand, look, a lot of these lower division teams in America are playing in high schools and playing in college, like community college stadiums and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you know what? this is where those fans, if whether it's 25 fans or 1,000 fans, go out and watch their team every single week or whatnot. So I think that there's just aspects to it that's obviously clearly just money hungry. And I think that it's Major League Soccer at fault for, yes, going to Liga MX and making this competition that helped phase out the US Open Cup. But again, USSF has every opportunity to meet up with Don Garber and the owners and be like, hey, can we somehow make the US Open Cup more valuable or more interesting to Major League Soccer
It
and
was
to
all
these
reactive, is kind of your point. Like
100%.
they could have done that, but they waited too long to where it was like, no, MLS teams don't want to compete in this competition. Like if they could have gotten ahead of that, they could have figured things out and gotten ahead of a lot of that, and they just never did because they just, I don't know, didn't think it was going to happen, whatever. But here we are.
100%.
But yeah, I mean, I think I don't want this to go into another conversation about, but I think like Pro Rel in England definitely helps the charm of that tournament. Like the fact that you can have these smaller teams play like a Manchester United or something, but then also get to that league or get closer and closer and closer, and like that, I think that is sort of like helpful. Like if you got a team in League 2 or something that makes it far and is facing a Premier League team in that tournament, like that money is actually going back into that team to get them higher up. You know, they're going to reinvest that into their academy or wherever they're going to do it, buying players, improve their team. And I think that like it matters a little bit more, I guess.
I agree with that. Look, I think Pro Rel is a whole other topic, and obviously,
yeah, they don't want to go into that right now. Maybe
Pro Rel would probably help out the Open Cup and everything like that. You know, I just think to not just repeat the point 700 times. I think it's more than just Major League Soccer's fault that that the Open Cup is what it is this year. I do think that Major League Soccer maybe could bend a little bit, but I also think that there's plenty of other people who are at fault for allowing this competition to end up being what it is in 2024. And yes, I'm going to watch the Open Cup, and I probably won't go to a game. I'm also going to be honest with that. So am I part of the problem? Probably, but whatever. It is what it is. Maybe
yeah, that's the thing. It's like we'll sit here and argue it, but like I haven't been to one. So.
Exactly, which also again to me is like, does USSF do anything to make this competition special? Is it just you throw up an Open Cup banner on some community college's chain link fence and this is the competition? Like, I'm sorry, but you're also not doing your part to it. Again, I want to see MLS all the teams. I want to see them all in the Open Cup. I want to see them all competing at a high level and fighting for a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot. If I ran and owned a team, that's what I would be doing. But the competition outside of the fun story we get every other season doesn't really do much. And I love the Open Cup. I will sit here and I will say it's one of the best competitions in U.S. soccer. And it's also the reality that there's no support internally from the Open Cup side of things, which is USSF and Major League Soccer.
I think the Open Cup really shined. Like, I'll bring up the game I always bring up is the Fire versus Cincinnati. Like, I'll remember that for another 30 years. Like that game 100%. Was incredible. And I'm a Fire fan, and it was still incredible. And we lost to Cincinnati, who was a USL team at the time. Yeah. And I just think that is the peak of that's what it could be every week. That's what it could be every, those are the storylines that they needed to kind of build up. This is what you could do. And I think it was amazing at the time, and they kept moving on, and you have had that like one or two of those most years, right? Like
Sacramento 2 years ago in the final against Sporting Kansas City, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just like sure that it's not always they're not winning it that often, but the FA Cup isn't won by small teams very often either. It's just the charm of having those moments where it's like, oh my God, this team just like had a major upset when no one thought it was going to happen. The Hildebrandt, I'll remember that guy forever. I don't even know where he is anymore, man. Like it's one of those things where like people become
He's
legends.
he's an assistant coach at St. Louis, by the way, in case you want to know that.
Nice.
Yeah.
My point is like that's where the charm is of that kind of tournament.
Yeah.
You're not getting something like that in Leagues
Yeah.
Cup. You're not going to go,
No.
oh wow, what an upset! What an amazing game. It's not like even if the Fire went out and beat Monterey or something, I still wouldn't be like, wow, what an incredible game, what legends. Like we're still paying our players millions of dollars, $9-10 million a year.
And
so
for anyone who disagrees with the point that people won't, like, to your point right there, because I feel like there would be people that would disagree that, you're not going to remember anything from Leagues Cup. I think the only clear memory I have from Leagues Cup last year, outside of like the final, right, is Lionel Messi debut banger. And the only reason why people are going to remember that is because it's Messi. Literally the only reason.
I mean, the only reason anyone's going to remember the Leagues Cup stuff from last year is like Inter Miami stuff,
Right?
Like,
Exactly.
Messi came in and then they started winning, like a team that was at the bottom brought in the best soccer player
for sure,
basically of all time and then started winning. Like, and that's the storyline. But overall, I don't have memories. I don't have like and there needs more time, but I just don't think you're going to have the same charm of like a smaller team beating a massive team.
For sure.
And even in Leagues Cup, every team is still generally top level, top tier. So
for sure.
I mean, it's just the same thing as if like I don't know who's really bad. Like Austin went out and beat Seattle or something next weekend. Like it's the same thing, It's not like that crazy.
At the end of the day, 100%. I just don't want to sit here and come across like you or me. I don't want to sit here and come across of like we are sitting here hating on the Open Cup or anything like that. I just don't think the competition's really been that special. And I think the Cincinnati, you could argue the Sacramento run, but I don't think since that Cincinnati run with Mitch Hildebrandt, we've had a special moment in the Open Cup. And obviously, yes, there are special moments that people are going to turn to and listen to this clip and call me an idiot or call you an idiot or whatever. But
I mean, the conversation is just way more nuanced than like this black and white. Oh, MLS should have all their teams there, and we might sound like we're supporting MLS in the decision, but I don't actually feel like I am at all. I feel like I'm against it. I don't want them. It's disappointing. Yeah. I want all the teams in there. It's just there's more to it than hey, put all the teams in there. It's like the people listening. Have they gone? Like ask yourself. Like maybe I'm 100%. Sure there's people listening who are like, yeah, I've been to every single one. Like I love going to those, and that's amazing. Like that's the best part about it. But like the facts are, it's not where it should have been, and that's because of a lack of support on both sides.
I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, that's fair. Look, again, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to defend the U.S. Open Cup. I'm a hypocrite for not going. Fair enough. That's fine. And, again, if the competition was made more special, maybe, or interesting, maybe I'd go. But that doesn't mean I don't want Major League Soccer clubs in it. But whatever. Let's leave it at that.
It's not a fun conversation.
No, it's a shitty conversation because at the end of the day, you want to see competitions like this thrive, grow. And at the end of the day, a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot is still open at the end of it, but it just financially
Louisville's on the way.
Exactly. Cool. Okay, let's move on to MLS action. Let's move on to stuff on the field, clubs, all that stuff. And let's go with a team that's actually in CONCACAF Champions Cup, FC Cincinnati. A little bit of a busy last few weeks roster-wise.
I don't think they played this past weekend, did they?
No, they didn't at all. That's not a point of something I want to get to in this conversation.
Oh, it definitely wasn't there.
FC Cincinnati, they've loaned away left wing back and stud. I guess you want to call him a defender, not really. Alvaro Barreal to Brazilian club Cruzeiro in the Brazilian First Division. Then they go out, they sign Luca Orellano on loan from Vasco da Gama in Brazil. So he's, presumably going to play left wing back once he's back with the club. I think he had to step away this weekend for like a family issue or something like that. So I hope everything's okay, Luca. And then more recently, yesterday, FC Cincinnati traded for USMNT right wing back, I guess, DeAndre Yedlin from Inter Miami for around $175,000 in GAM. This past weekend, Cincinnati Cincinnati did go out and defeat the Chicago Fire 2-1 in Chicago, and now they prep to face CF Monterrey in CONCACAF Champions Cup. Jason, you were at an FC Cincinnati game this past weekend.
I was at a Fire game, actually.
I'm going to turn it to you in the sense of I want to get to your Fire experience, but let's just start with Cincinnati. What do you make of the Cincinnati roster right now? What do you make of them competing in MLS? And now, they're getting into the serious Mexico club stages of CONCACAF Champions Cup.
They're building a team to compete in multiple. It feels like to me they're building a team to compete in multiple competitions here. With these signings, with some of this, Yedlin especially is like their game. Like you look at their team sheet, it's pretty nice to look at. They've got depth pieces at pretty much every position. And then their top of the line is obviously the top of the line pretty much in MLS, right? Like the supporter shield, this is a good team that's just somehow doing what other clubs in MLS just don't think of in signing players that are good and
spending money. I mean,
yeah, like teams spend money, but they don't always spend it right though. Like,
well, the Yedlin thing is the interesting piece in that money spending conversation, right? Because they got him for next to nothing in general allocation money, but his contract is huge, and that is definitely going to play a factor in a salary cap league. And I don't know if Yedlin's a long-term answer at right wing back, but I mean,
I personally don't think he's a long-term answer.
This feels like a Cincinnati's rolling out Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga, Yedlin, another Lucho season, Bupenza. Like, can we just get this all together for another trophy or two trophies this season? And whoever we can kind of retain, great.
I do feel like, they're going all in for the short term, 100%. Which I think is a good thing. Like, go after it. You have a really good team. You have got players like at their peaks. Lucho Acosta is incredible. Like he probably could have had 4 goals in that Fire game. He was whipping balls in. It was crazy. And in like Yedlin, I honestly thought was older, but he's only 30. Lucho's 29. Like Corey Baird, I don't think is that old, but
he's under 30,
mid 20s. He's 30.
He's under 30.
Oh, okay. I was like, I think he's probably mid to late 20s. But anyway, like this team is just so solid at this point. Like, I don't know. They're scary. Watching them live is interesting. Like you see all of it. And I sit pretty close at the Fire games, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that's not going to go away easy. They're not going to make it easy. I'll be interested to see them midweek because I think that's the real test. They've had a couple of lighter games so far this season in Champions Cup as well as MLS, although Toronto,
a light game.
Toronto 4 points in 2 games,
They undefeated so far, right?
But
I mean, I'm with you in the sense of I think their opening competition with CONCACAF Champions Cup was light, a 6-0 aggregate win over the Jamaican champions. Good on you, whatever. Now you've faced Toronto. You've now gone on the road and faced Chicago. Now this is where the real deal needs to step up if you're a club in Major League Soccer. You want a supporter shield, that's great, but now you're in multiple competitions. Now can you roll with the big boys of Major League Soccer? Can you be up there with the Sounders and the LAFCs and the Toronto FCs of the past that we've talked about and everything like that, right? And I think this club has enough talent and has enough veteran leadership to do so. But at the end of the day, facing Liga MX competition is not easy. Going out and facing Monterrey, which I'm pretty sure are on a little bit of a hot streak right now in league play, and Brandon Vasquez is scoring in bunches. I think 5 goals in 8 games for Monterrey. This is going to be interesting. This is a Brandon Vasquez reunion now. This is a
that's
2-leg.
A fun part.
That's right. You have to travel to Mexico. You have to, then come back and play some MLS games in
they got DC next on the weekend.
And DC's playing pretty well to start the season. So even if the fact of you get through Monterrey, most likely, and sorry, I'm not, making predictions here in the other games. Most likely, you're facing Inter Miami in the next round. So now you have to go take on, Lionel Messi and all of that, and then there's a chance you're taking on Tigres in the next. Like, this is what you have to do if you want to be the big boys of Major League Soccer. And Cincinnati have said that they want to do it, and the fans are there pushing it, and the fans are there talking shit, and the players are there playing, and they're doing their thing. I think they can do it, but I'm excited to see what these next few weeks look like for Cincinnati, because I think it really is going to shape the conversation around them for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and I think they've even been able to rotate their squad a little bit over these last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like I think midweek last week, pretty sure Miazga didn't play. I'm pretty sure Miles Robinson only played a half or something. Like
Yeah.
Miazga obviously was suspended and he's come back now, so they should be pretty fresh for this game. I mean, they played on Saturday versus the Fire, but I don't know. I don't feel like it was like that crazy of a game.
So if you want to dive into that, Jason, your opening Fire game of the season wasn't a great experience?
No, it was fun, man. Like I love going to those games. I feel like the Fire are slowly building in like a atmosphere in a I don't know. It feels like a real team. Like every year they sort of build on the previous year. They have like a
Yeah.
fun little like intro thing where they like hit like do not smash this class or something with an axe. It's a big deal. Drummond did it. Andre Drummond, who plays for the Bulls.
That's fun.
So like
That's fun.
they have like that little gimmick, like how they have like a little thing at the beginning.
Did you see the Revs what they did? It's so embarrassing. The
I don't think
tossing of the tee box into like off the
that's hilarious.
it's so bad. It's really just like a box that has the opposing team's logo on it. And I think Scott Caldwell threw it this past weekend for the first time, and it just like lands on the ground, like break something, like give me something. It's just like a foam box that they just like
Oh
toss.
my god, yeah, that's pretty bad. Well,
Sorry.
anyways, like I think it was like it's fun. So we have season tickets and we get free parking with it now because it was like a renewal bonus or something.
Nice.
So we went to tailgate. We got the wrong lot, so we had to switch that back. But it was fun. I mean, the whole atmosphere was pretty good. Like all things considered, like the whole lower bowl was pretty close to full, which is big for the Fire. Hopefully they can keep that kind of vibes up. But eventually, like the results are going to have to come to keep some of those fans. Like I've seen it from last year. There's games where I don't know, there's 8,000 people in the stadium. Like it's super quiet. But game one, like the vibes felt pretty good, and then obviously they lost 2-1. But it's Cincinnati. I mean, we're starting this season in hell. Like Philly
Hey,
away, Cincinnati at home, Columbus away, and then I think we have Montreal at home. Like that's a tough 4 games, especially the first 3.
it's the Eastern Conference, bro. Eastern Conference is going to be tough most
Yeah.
weeks now, unfortunately. But I mean, look, Chicago, I've been impressed with so far. I do want to see Hugo Quafers. I'm not.
Yeah, he looks so good, man. Like
He
I know he
looks like he
hasn't
just needs
scored.
to adjust. He's still adjusting. You know
I
what I'm
think our
saying?
tactics need to improve. I think I didn't want to like go this deep, but like Klopp us, like come on, man. Like this team looks like they've never met each other. And I
I
know
know
there's new faces, but come on. But I
it's
will say,
still
like
early.
half the time we just ping the ball up and just hope for the best. But Kuipers gets his head on a lot of those balls, and he's able to flick them on to people. He's able to control it way better than I've seen from any Fire. I mean, it's not a high bar for Fire strikers here, but especially
What are you
recently.
talking about? Nemanja Nikolic, bro? Come on, that's the
All right,
highest.
well, are we talking 5 years ago?
More than that.
Yeah, it was probably 7 years ago. I don't even
Robert
remember.
Parrish? Come on, get out of here.
Oh, I thought he was going to be good, man.
Um,
Jabilko?
Casper, come on, bro.
But I
No,
mean, Kuipers looks good though. I think
he does.
the improvements are there. I hope Gutman comes back soon.
Yeah,
But overall, like they're trying. Hopefully, they can settle into the season and start picking up some wins. I think they have the talent to, but like you said, it's a tough conference.
look, things in Chicago are looking better than my club, so I can't sit here and say much. So,
What you guys gonna shoot on goal ever?
we gonna score a goal ever? I don't know. It's nice and fun.
Okay, I can't argue much because I only was a PK.
It's fine. It's fine. Let's move on. Let's go to another team in the East who impressed heavily this weekend. And, we're going to talk about them every week, folks. So I'm sorry. But Inter Miami, huge 5-0 win over their in-state rival Orlando City SC. Suarez with 2 goals and 2 assists coming from Jason last week, who said he can't move. Lionel Messi with 2 goals. Julian Gressel with 2 assists. Miami, they now have 7 points through 3 games, 2 of those games being at home, just as a note there. But now they have to, face and add another competition with CONCACAF Champions Cup coming into play. I guess, has your opinion since last week changed? Because for me, it has. I always felt like Miami was a good team. I always felt like Miami was going to be one of the tougher teams in the Eastern Conference, but there was something different about that performance against an Orlando team that
in state too. Oh,
it's just
my opinion.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, my opinion. I think that was like as big of a statement as you can make in the third game of the season for them.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Like they came out against a good Orlando side. A lot of people are including us, we're both pretty high on them going into the season, thinking, good goalkeeping, some improvements. Pere has a good coach. And Miami went in there and from the minute it started, jumped them and just dominated. Like it just got worse and worse and worse. And I went to go to Soldier Field or whatever, like midway through that game, and I was texting you, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. This team is insane. They can't stop scoring, and I don't know. I don't like. Obviously, Luis Suarez is a good player. Like I didn't mean to say it like he's not going to succeed. My bigger thing is, sure, this is week 3, 2 games at home. Now, like we're still so early that what's going to happen in week 15 or whatever. And I think that's the conversation to still be had about Miami, and it's going to kind of linger over them the whole time. But it's not to say like that is going to happen. Like there's a chance Suarez stays healthy the entire season. There's a chance none of them get hurt. I mean, Messi got hurt last year, and it wasn't great. They were making that late playoff push. I think they easily could have gotten into the playoffs if he doesn't get hurt. So, like, if they have their stars, if you have Messi in this league, you should be a playoff team, right? You should be a dominant team, and they are. And they're like you're saying, Campagna is also like a good backup. Like they have players who are really good around Messi. It's not like this team is nowhere near what it was first half of last season. But yeah, as this win probably was as good of a win as you could want this early in the season against a good team.
I think if Miami's main focus right now is to win Champions Cup, which Tata Martino has come out and said that is the main focus, just kind of getting yourself warmed up is this is as good of, like you said, as a statement win of any. And to me, I think Miami, everyone's talking about the legs and the age and everything like that. I think even in the long stretch of the season, they're going to be just fine as long as they stay healthy and the depth is there.
Really,
right?
It's just Messi that needs to stay healthy, honestly.
I mean, fair enough, right? Because, like, look, you have Campagna. If Kramaski can come back healthy soon enough, if even, like you get minutes and legs from Joel Mota and David Ruiz. David Ruiz has looked great so far off the bench to start the season. I think that this team has the legs to do it as long as they remain healthy, and knock on wood, I don't want to see injuries ever on players. So hopefully they do remain healthy and, this team can keep doing their thing. And I think, like I said, that's the key point to them is they need these guys with the legs running around the aging superstars. We said it last week, and I think this was a clear example of that because Robert Taylor was on fire, and it was just it was unbelievable. So, I mean, fun game to watch. I had my non-MLS friends watching, texting me going, "Oh, Miami's just going to run the league, right?" And I said, "No," and that was a whole larger conversation, but whatever.
I also think Miami doesn't have the hardest round of 16 matchup with Nashville.
So. No, they maybe have the easiest out in terms of like MLS and Liga MX sides because there's still a few non-Mexico MLS clubs. They maybe have the easiest face matchup there if you want to argue it. Maybe Houston, maybe, but whatever.
You said Columbus.
Miami. No, I'm sorry. I'm saying like if there was an easier competition, I would say maybe it's a New England, maybe it's a Houston.
Oh, yeah.
But whatever. So look, Miami, they do have a somewhat of a very clear-cut path to a Champions Cup final, and we'll get to that point. But yes, Jason, to your point, they do face Nashville for the next 2 games of CONCACAF Champions Cup action. Quickly, any concerns on an Orlando City side that hasn't scored in 180 minutes of MLS action yet?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I mean,
okay.
definitely. I think, especially with how Duncan McGuire played early in the season, then you even saw some of those goals start dropping. And then last year in the playoffs, I think we talked a lot about they need to keep scoring. I think goals need to keep coming from. I mean, that's not like a hot take, right? Like this is a sport where you need to score goals, and if you can't
Exactly.
score, you're not winning. So whether you're letting in 5 goals or one, they still lose that game. So that's a problem.
I mean, look, I know they signed Luis Muriel from Atalanta, and he hasn't gotten off the mark yet. And the same issues that we saw them crash out of the playoffs last year with the lack of creation to get to the goal scorer, I think are popping their head up in MLS action right now. And I do. This is the type of thing where I can continue to grow some concern for Orlando in the next few weeks. But maybe I don't know. Maybe the focus is solely on Champions Cup right now. But we'll see. We'll see how things
I
play out
mean,
for.
they have a game at home versus Minnesota next week. I think that's a big one. Like if they don't score there at home against Minnesota, I mean, not that Minnesota's bad. They actually look pretty good. But I just think they need to start scoring. This isn't like it's not like they're a drastically different team from last year that was pretty good. So something's off and they need to figure it out. And like you said, like it's still early. They could get 6 goals or whatever next week. Like
Yeah.
it's early enough where you can kind of still be like, it's okay. But if you start digging yourself a hole that goes 5 weeks in or whatever, then it starts to
Yeah.
become an issue.
No, for sure. The
Especially
next
in this conference. We've talked about it so much, but yeah.
Yeah, no, the Eastern Conference being an absolute hellhole. And the next 2 teams I'm going to talk about super quickly just to kind of run through it. Not that they aren't deserving of it, but want to hit some other stuff as well. So if you have any points you want to say about these, let me know. But CF Montreal with another road performance after a 0-0 game against Orlando City in their first matchup of the season. Montreal traveled to Dallas this past weekend, took 3 points on the road in a 2-1 win. Josef Martinez getting that game winner in his first for Montreal. Dallas, they had Peitar Musa get his first appearance, first start for the club, and he did score their lone goal on a goal that was initially not called the goal. He got it. The Moose was happy. I love the celebration. So any Montreal or Dallas takes quick on this one?
I mean, it not no, not really.
Fine enough. I'm impressed with Montreal. That's the only thing I'm going to say. So far through 2 weeks, I've been impressed with them. The other one that I quickly want to mention is Minnesota United. You did say just a few minutes ago that they've looked pretty good to start the season. They got to win week 1 against Austin on the road. Then at home this
A
past weekend,
late goal.
a late winner. So Tani Olawasi, he was a striker that was on loan with San Antonio FC in the USL Championship last year. He won the USL Championship Golden Boot last season. He comes on as a late game sub for Minnesota in this game, down 1-0, and he had a beautiful little chipped goal over the top of Patrick Schulte to save a point at home for the Loons. And a pretty special day all around with Christian Ramirez returning to Minnesota. I think it was his first game playing in Minnesota since 2019. Both clubs put out some cool stuff about it. Ramirez is a Minnesota United legend. So it was a pretty cool game. And just that Tani Olawasi late game goal kind of just was the seal on a pretty cool moment there in Minnesota.
I mean, it's massive to get a point. I mean, sure they're home, but you're against Columbus, and I don't think this draw takes anything away from Columbus. I think they're still looking
No,
good, looking
I
really
still
good.
think they're the best team in the league.
Yeah, another Cucho goal. Like the guy is just automatic.
Yeah.
But I think it shows a little bit that Minnesota's kind of like, I don't know, they're here. They're not gonna just go away, and especially at home. I've been there. I think I'm gonna try and get up there again for a game because it's awesome up there. But it is it's a fun place to be to watch a game, and I'm sure that helps the players. And you can't go to sleep on Minnesota.
No, for sure. I think Minnesota, and this is them still without Reynoso, right? So if and when Reynoso can come back, Robin Lod was out injured this past week as well. So they're out a few players right now, and they're still getting results. So look,
and that's the biggest thing. We've always talked about how Minnesota's goes as Reynoso goes, and if they can start getting results and put themselves in a decent spot, and then they get him back, and they learn to play without him, and then you play with someone like him, the ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is the roof. I have to say, Caden Clark has been impressive in his MLS return. Hassani Dotson has looked good this season. Boxall and Toppy.
They got ballers, man.
They're good all around. The back line, I think, has been really impressive for them, more than anyone else on that team. Another piece, maybe a newer piece that's been a little impressive to start the season is out in LA with the Galaxy. The Galaxy took down San Jose in the Cali Classico 3-1 this past weekend. But Joseph Pancil, their new winger, he's one of two brand new DP wingers brought into this club this offseason. Did you see the absolute banger of a goal that this dude put in? And I don't know. I'm starting to regret my Galaxy preseason.
I'm going to look at where we had him.
You had the Galaxy in a playoff spot. I didn't. Pancil put in an absolute screamer.
You had him 10. I had him 7.
To me, when you see guys like Carlos Hill, Emmanuel Reynoso, Lionel Messi, guys like that, right, who are attacking at a different speed compared to everyone else at the field, that's when you know that they're a level above, right? Pancil in this game, especially that goal, that moment, he was just at a different speed, a different level than anyone else around him, whether it was on the Galaxy or on San Jose. And that's what I think is the sign and the mark of a special player. And I mean, look, he had a goal and an assist in this game, and I think he could really change the level of the Galaxy in 2024.
Well, yeah, and I think having players around Puig that are just solid players is just going to help that even more, because we've talked a lot about Puig and how much he can impact a game. And if you got guys like Pancil killing it, it just helps. It takes a little bit off of him and puts it on others and spreads it out and makes the defenses have to kind of defend a little bit differently, look at the team a little differently. But yeah, I mean, I think this Galaxy team is pretty good. I think they have some talent. I feel pretty good about where I have them, because I don't think they're top tier, but I think at least now, they definitely look like a team that's not going to be fun to play week to week.
For sure.
They're going to be fun to watch week to week, though. I think that.
I think also if Gabriel Peck can start to get fully introduced, and he's playing at a high level as well that everyone's expecting him to be coming and playing at, and you have an attacking forward of Pancil, a high-level Peck, Dejan Joveljic, and Ricky Puig. I mean, I don't know if I can name a better four in Major League Soccer if those things work out, right? This is a whole big if, but I'm just saying it's a lot of excitement for the Galaxy that haven't been good in quite some time. But you know what, Jason? Something that's always good is a snow game.
Oh.
How was your RSL LAFC snow game experience?
My experience was me looking to try and figure out how to turn this game on when it was supposed to start. And nowhere could I find that it was postponed.
Nothing.
Yeah, is anyone going to say something? I'm looking for it for 30 minutes going, where is this game? Finally, the broadcast picks it up. They play for about 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, the weather must be bad there. Because, I wasn't really paying attention to weather reports.
Out in Salt Lake, I
don't care. So I was like, oh, the weather must have been bad. So all of a sudden, 4 minutes in, they're like, let's go in. And then I go to the Fire game, and I'm looking at my phone, checking scores, checking Twitter, whatever, to see what's happening. And I see that game, and I'm like, what? So the weather was really bad, huh? And
yeah, literally.
The orange ball, there was a lot of snow.
It's, you know what, the beginning of the game really wasn't even that bad, but toward the last 10-15 minutes when you kick a ball and it rolls 3 fucking inches from your foot.
I don't even know how they saw the lines on the field.
They had dudes with shovels just clearing out lines on every single goal kick. It was I understand why LAFC's players in Trundle were a little pissed off after the game. I get it. But at the end of the day, I mean, RSL took advantage, and so
Of
it was
all teams that have to do that too, LAFC is maybe the funniest one.
maybe
Just like
one
a
of them.
team in such a nice their game the week before was what 65 and
Yeah,
sunny, and everyone was like, "Man, Hugo Lloris is going to tell his buddies about this."
bro. The Hugo
And now it's like
Lloris
he's probably going to be telling his buddies he's playing in a foot of snow.
The Hugo Lloris like screenshot that I think Bogert put out there on social media is hysterical. It was, it's just him snow in his beard. Like, look, I don't know if that was suitable conditions for a soccer game. I'm not going to sit here and say it was, but I saw another funny tweet that someone said if Major League Soccer played on like the European schedule, Carlos Andres Gomez would win a Golden Boot every single season. I mean, like Gomez put in an absolute show of a performance, 2 goals and an assist. He absolutely bodied Omar Campos on that first goal. Campos just slipped, but it looks like Gomez
I
just
just
goes
think
into
you can't take anything away from this game in terms of
no, just
performance or
pure
quality.
fun.
Like
Pure fun.
it's an absolute chaos, and we love that because it's just fun and cool
It's
to watch.
what
But yeah,
is Major
pure
League
chaos
Soccer? What is Major League Soccer without chaos? All right, we're
without a
closing
foot of
in.
snow in a game.
Literally. We're closing in on an hour. So, Jason, is there any? I know I have a few other points here. Is there any other game, team, storyline, anything that interests you before we kind of maybe get to a wrap?
Who should I say? So NYCFC. I'm just kidding.
I mean, we can talk about how I'm furious. That's fine. We can go down.
I'm just trying to wind you up. I don't know. I mean, I think I didn't catch a ton of the Seattle versus Austin games. It's
it
late,
wasn't great.
but that's the thing. Like, if Seattle needs this, that's a home game.
A lot of injuries. I will say Seattle's out. Like Seattle had. I have it right here. Seattle had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players out with injury in that game, from Stefan Fry to Joao Paulo, Yamar, Albert Rusnak, like big names out. But look, at the end of this day, you still have an Alex Roldan, a Nuhu, a
It's
Leo
still
Chu.
Seattle versus Austin.
I don't disagree. Was it in Seattle? I'm pretty sure.
Seattle. Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
90%
So
sure.
I don't disagree that through 2 games so far, they have not looked at the level that you and I had them at, and many other people did. And the finishing is nerve-wracking for sure. So,
I'm
if
so
we're going
confident they're figuring it out, though. I mean,
I
this is
think
Seattle. This team has such good players.
see, and that's how I feel about Orlando. I do actually have some concerns about Seattle, but maybe that's
I
just
feel
me.
the opposite. So I
Yeah,
feel better about Seattle than I do Orlando.
I'm opposite right now. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's fun. That's
There's just
fun. Hope
something
Steven's
about
right.
There's just something about it. Like, what if Pedro de la Vega takes a season to adjust to Major League Soccer? If he does, this team's no better than last year. And yes, I know they made the Western Conference Finals last year, but like,
Pretty high bar.
I mean, it is 100%. The only other thing that I want to say, because you hated on them last week too, Toronto FC pick up a big win on the road in New
Yeah.
England. I mean, that Insigne chip. If we're going to talk about Oluwasi's chip in Minnesota, you got to talk about Insigne. You know, his chip over Rabas, and getting that big 1-0 win on the road for Toronto. I mean, 4 points through 2 games, Jason. I mean, Toronto, are they back?
Back, I'm gonna say no, but I do think if Herdman can get these guys buying in, they're
Yeah.
gonna be I'm not gonna say a good team, but not a bad team. You know, they're not gonna be where many had them as worst in the league or damn near close to worst in the league. They're gonna be competitive.
Mhm.
Again, we said it early on when we were doing previews too. Like the starting 11 really has talent. It's just what happens, when the going gets tough, and it's Insigne and Bernadeschi are like ticking time bombs, and if that goes off, the season's over for them.
Since our preview of them, they have like quietly made a bunch of signings. Like they did sign Maddie Longstaff. They re-signed Amy Mabika. They also signed someone else too.
I will say that depth chart looks so much better now.
I mean, yes, I think they've filled it out a little bit nicer for sure. They also signed Nickerson Gomish, who just made his debut this past weekend and looked pretty good against New England. If we're going to talk about a team that I have concerns with, it is the New England Revolution. By the way, I understand
The team I
match
had
day
pretty
one was a
high up.
red card, but this is a bad loss at home. Now you have CONCACAF Champions Cup, and yes, you're playing Alajuelense. You're not playing a Mexican club, but this is the start of things that just kind of roller coasters into an ugly, ugly time. And I have my concerns for the Reds.
This is not the way I thought they'd start the season.
No, not at all.
And I was very high on this team, actually. And it's been disappointing, to say the least. I think there's a lot more talent than what they've been showing. So I don't know if it's Caleb Porter needs to just more time to get the best out of these guys, but we know this team has quality in it. They just have to find it, I guess.
Could it be balancing multiple competitions too? Obviously,
This
like we said,
this does feel like a perfect team to not go after CONCACAF Champions Cup here. It seems like a great team to get eliminated and move on to just focusing on MLS.
Yeah, but then you're going to be known as the one MLS team to get eliminated by, a non-Mexican side. You know what I'm saying? Like, then there's also that.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to get whatever.
It's tough. It's tough. If they don't get past Alajuelense, I will actually have more concerns. You know what I'm saying?
Good point.
If they got eliminated by Chivas or Club America, okay, cool, that's fine.
If they were playing Chivas or Club America, I would have just said, just punt it.
Yeah, literally. No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they have had injuries. Rioni was out this last game with the red card from week 1. So I don't know. I'm not pushing the panic button yet, but the panic button, my hand's over it. I'm wavering.
They're honestly in the same category as Seattle and Orlando for the most part, but they probably have a little bit less tighter of a leash or whatever.
He might be in a worse category in my brain, but
I just think they have like a little bit less of like faith in them. Like we have a little bit less faith in them versus an Orlando or Seattle who have shown a little bit more recently.
Fair enough. Is there anything else that you want to wrap up this episode with, sir?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, on that note, I will just say a quick congratulations to Russell Teibert, who recently announced his retirement from professional soccer. Longtime Vancouver Whitecaps player, over 20,000 minutes, 301 games, all with the Whitecaps, a one-man club. You always love to see it. 3-time Canadian championship winner. So he's going to go join the front office at the Whitecaps. So
love to see it even more, honestly.
Yeah, right? You love that transition.
Stick around, bud.
And then it was announced that the 2024 MLS All-Star game that's being held in Columbus, Ohio, will be once again the MLS All-Stars versus the Liga MX All-Stars. So, I mean, look, the graphic I put up on Instagram was really just the first, 3 players that popped in my head. So I put up Lionel Messi, Cucho Hernandez, and Miles Robinson. Don't know why those 3, but it was those 3. And then I put up on the Liga.
Beyond that.
I mean, Messi, Cucho makes sense. Miles, I mean, I respect to Miles, but I don't know why he was the third name in my brain. And then on the Liga MX side,
I love it.
Yeah, right. I put up Brandon Vasquez, Cade Cowell, and Alejandro Zendejas. So some American ties to all my Liga MX picks there. But yeah, I mean, look, I don't know, whatever. I don't like Liga MX All-Stars versus MLS All-Stars. I've been a proponent of that. People disagree. It is what it is. I don't know how you feel.
I don't have a strong feeling. I really like the skills challenges, though. I think
that's it. That's it. The FIFA loading screen. Jason loves it. On that note, folks, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. And in the meantime, enjoy CONCACAF Champions Cup and some MLS action. Oh, I like that, Jason.